Welcome to Geektionary. My name's Corey Hales, and this is the geekiest podcast you'll probably ever hear, where I will try to teach you, along with my friends, about the nerdier things in life. Let's talk about it. I can't enjoy a glass of anything. I drink very fast. So, as this is take two with Caitlin Potty, nothing to do with her earlier thing. It was fine. It was just there was a third party in another room that had nothing to do with this that made us both feel super awkward, and Caitlin realized that she...
And I mean, I don't need any help feeling awkward. It comes naturally on its own.
Yeah, so today we are talking about elves. And Caitlin, did you volunteer or did I kind of Shanghai you into this one?
You totally shanghaied me into talking about elves.
I couldn't... That's such a weird sentence.
Because I love elves and you fucking hate them.
Which makes for good podcasting.
Obviously.
Yeah, so. Gotta have, like... So far, most of the things we've talked about Avengers, we've talked about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, caffeine, and Dungeons and Dragons, all of which are things that I enjoy.
Yeah.
I do appreciate elves. I respect their place in the whole... No, don't you shake your head. I respect their place in the whole fantasy genre, but I don't care for them.
Why? Okay, I have a question for you, bucko.
Fucking go.
Why?
What? Okay.
Why don't you care for them?
I don't like their attitude. They have a bad attitude. They're very, very pretentious and haughty. And they're immortal, and I guess maybe I'm bitter about that.
That's fair.
I will say, one of my first real exposures to elves, because I played Dungeons and Dragons. I think for the first time, or at least I became exposed to Dungeons and Dragons. I think when I was about 9 or 10. And I started reading Dragonlance because my stepbrother did, and obviously elves are going to show up there. And
obviously.
Yeah, one of the main characters is Tanis Half-Elven, whose full name is actually this. This is one of the reasons I don't like elves. He was raised by elves, so his full name is Tanthalus Quisifnen Pa, which is a terrible and retarded name. That is a terrible name. Just period. That's awful.
Well, in my defense, my elves are named way better than that.
Windfire.
I don't have a character with that name, actually.
What's your character's name? In WoW, by the way.
In WoW, strictly speaking, I don't know. There's lots of them.
You have many characters?
Yes, I do.
Are they all elves?
No.
Okay.
I'm not that one track. There's Erindry. There's Tiger's Blood.
Oh. That seems inappropriate for an elf, actually.
Yeah, well, she's a warlock, so she can do whatever she wants.
Well, okay, sure.
And there's, oh god, I don't know. I just hit random enough.
Oh, you just hit random. You don't come up with your own name.
I don't.
Tiger's Blood, was that a random selection?
Hell no, it wasn't.
I didn't think so.
It's all Ilyana or something.
Ilyana Tiger's Blood.
Why not?
Yeah, because Charlie Sheen winning. Is that why you named the elf Tiger's Blood?
Well, I just thought it was really cool because, hey, she's a warlock, and I'm going to see if this name's actually taken. And it wasn't, shockingly, because, I mean, Buttholes is taken. God Hates Fags is taken.
Have you seen a God Hates Fags on WoW?
No, but I've seen...
Butthole?
I've seen many renditions of Butthole on WoW.
When I first got into the MMO thing, which I get into sporadically and then quit very quickly, my first character's name was Honky Johnson.
That's amazing.
I know, and I bet it took me like almost 10 levels for admin. What are they called? The guys that work for the thing that enforce rules and stuff.
GM.
Sort of. Yeah, I guess it would be one of the GMs, a moderator type person.
Oh, yeah.
Told me I had to change my name.
Yeah, there's actually really strict naming rules for WoW, but nobody follows them. Ever, ever, ever.
Do they all have to be like...
They have to be like fantasy names and not offensive, basically. And they aren't allowed to have...
racial slurs and swears.
Racial slurs or swears or titty references.
What about a clinical reference to a body part?
No, absolutely not.
Why not? Because that is not technically...
Because you know if they allow it, it's just gonna all be...
What's that thing at the back of your throat called?
Uvula?
Yeah, why don't you? Uvula sounds like
Most
a
people
fantasy
don't think
name.
about that.
That sounds like a fantasy name. Uvula the
Maybe.
sorceress.
Maybe we're nothing about. I can't do this right now.
Anyway, getting away from WoW and back more specifically to elves.
Hmm.
I kind of like I see elves. Okay, in comic books, horror, and fantasy, there are typically one type of character that I have an issue with.
Of course.
Because, yeah, well, this the thing about being a geek and being a pop culture fan is it's a lot about passion, regardless of whether or not that makes sense.
Oh. Hmm.
That's what I think. So
Yes.
the three are Superman,
Hmm.
vampires, and elves. Superman, too many powers. Vampires, too many powers. Elves, bad attitude.
Bad
Like,
attitude.
see, they're the highest echelon.
That's literally the only thing
I
you really have a
I
problem with. It's just elves or
I
dicks.
have a
That's it.
I have a problem with arrogance, and that's kind of hypocritical. I'm well aware. I'm
Oh, maybe.
yeah, it's just like you think you're great. Not as good as me. Historically, I looked this up and they said that elves are from Germanic mythology and all that. Yet they were first really referenced in Old English and Old Norse. I think Germanic in this sense is more of a stylistic
Mhm.
definition, but that seems a really weird kind of stylistic definition because there's romanticism and there's other things. But Germanic sounds very specific. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I used to I used to read a lot about elves and fairies because why the hell not?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think every kid, fantasy geek, you gotta read about your elves and fairies.
yeah, yeah. And like I learned about red caps. Do you know about red caps?
Uh, Vaguely.
They were a. See, the thing is, old elves and fairies. Some of them were kind. This is such an awful conversation. They were randomly extraordinarily violent and cruel. And for the dump, like red caps are called red caps because they throw boulders at people and then dye their hats red with their blood. That is their entire purpose for being is to make sure their hats are red, and that is their only real interaction with people to kill them to keep their hats red.
Uh-huh.
This is a retarded. This is an absolutely awful bit of mythology and folklore.
But all folklore's like that.
Not look well. When I think of it in terms of folklore, I think of mythology and I think of Norse mythology, where there's kind of a purpose, or
Did you
Greek.
seem to forget that like Loki turned himself into a mare?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
he,
like
look,
let's not forget about
Loki
that.
was a wild
Okay.
card. He was the god of
All
trickery.
right, so folklore is fucked up, and
Hmm.
it's just its main purpose is to teach you lessons.
But what
Like,
does stay away from people with boulders that are throwing them at you? That what does the red cap have to teach you?
well, it's a mythical being, is it not?
Hmm. You know
Don't
what?
don't mess with mythical creatures, right?
Because you run into them all the time, brownies and bogies and. The thing is, I thought actually you did make a good point, and I actually just thought of this now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the red cap. I can't remember where their like habitat was,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe it was like cliff sides where rocks tend to fall, and people back then were so dumb that they're just like, well, rocks don't just fall on their own. Clearly, a tiny little man with a red hat threw this rock at me, trying to kill me, to steal my blood, to make his hat red.
Now, I mean, how to say that they're dumb is a little bit of a
Ignorant.
stretch. It's well, not even because your kids tell you or your parents tell you when you're a kid,
Mm-hmm.
um, don't stay up past a certain time outside, or you have to make sure you're asleep or Santa won't come.
Santa won't come, or
Yeah.
that.
I mean, it's not necessarily that they don't know the truth. It is trying to warn you in an
Just kind of
indirect
like
sense
in
that
like the red cap whole thing is like stay away from the cliffs. Why? Well, a boulder might fall on your head. Why would that happen?
exactly.
Red caps.
Yeah.
Like that's
Well,
it makes sense.
yeah.
That's actually a very good argument. I'm actually really quite impressed.
Oh, impressed that I
But
can.
look, shut up. I've had enough of your attitude.
Oh well.
It's been 10 minutes,
Pardon me.
and I am sick of you. getting specifically again back to elves.
Mhm.
I think elves was more of a general term way back when.
Yeah.
Like it was synonymous with fairy. It was just there. A red cap could be a fairy, could be a type of elf, it could be
Hmm.
blah 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 blah
Hmm.
blah. Because the original real definition of them was just ambivalent magic beings capable of either helping or hindering humans, which is a very vague kind of definition.
Yeah. I think it applied to a lot of
Yeah,
folklore.
yeah. It's so unspecific,
Hmm.
which when the only real specific thing in terms of what they looked like really came from Old Norse mythology,
Hmm.
which even then was still pretty vague.
Well, what are you going to call a mythical being? Like, I don't know. A term escapes me right now, but what are
Hmm.
you going to call a mythical being that looks a lot like us, but it's you
Yeah,
can't just call it human.
no,
I
it's
mean,
something like I wonder where the first real like witness of an elf, what that whole situation would have been like.
oh my god.
Because I understand the need for creating things like gods and stuff.
Hmm.
Like, why is that? Why is there lightning and thunder? Oh, the gods are angry.
Hmm.
But why would you need things like elves? Are they just like because the gods would often do things on their own, and they did have helpers, and maybe that's all that elves and fairies and stuff were. But at the same time, it maybe they just think there are some things that even gods couldn't be bothered with. So there
Well,
has to be some other sort of like spirit thing.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it depends on what you believe in, I guess. But
Hmm.
um, there's lesser gods or spirits and fairies and
Yeah,
shit like that. They're all responsible for their own shit.
I gave you that I lent you that book that I still haven't read yet with the raccoon god of wealth or something, whatever.
Yeah, divine misfortune.
Yeah, I can't remember the author's name, but it's he or she tends to write a lot of that kind of stuff.
A. Lee Martinez.
Yes, yes, I have read a book of his. It was all right.
Mm-hmm.
It went by the whole story was about if 50s science fiction monster stuff actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the main characters was a blob that took the form of a fat kid.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was a radioactive gorilla. One the main character was. Did you ever see This Island Earth
No.
with the mutant?
No.
And it's pronounced that way in the movie.
Oh,
It
mutant.
mutant.
I like it.
They're just like your Earth insects, larger of course, but um, they were think of basic man shape
Mm-hmm.
with pincers,
Mm-hmm.
two toes which were also pincers, big brain, like this huge, massive head, two massive eyes. This was the
Yeah.
main character, and it had it was a decent book. It had its ups and downs. I would have appreciated a bit more. It seemed to be trying a little too hard to be funny.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if they had tried to keep it a bit more straightforward and let the humor come from the
Was that
natural, whatever.
before or after divine misfortune?
This was released after Divine Misfortune.
Really?
Yeah,
I found.
maybe it's just he didn't quite know how to do it. Maybe the idea for the story wasn't quite as fleshed out. It wasn't a
Mm,
bad book. I do recommend it, but I have read other stuff that's by Ailey Martinez, and it's a bit better, a bit more concise. Is that the
mm-hmm.
word?
Mm-hmm.
So, you mentioned in the prior attempt at recording that your main character was a blood elf,
Yes.
and they used to be high elves. You said,
Yeah.
and what happened? Do you know?
Um. Well, according to the 2-second Google search I did, um, I'm not really a pro on this,
No,
obviously.
that's fine.
One moment.
You're allowed to play a video game and not know every aspect of it.
Well, for the sake of entertaining,
Mm-hmm.
let us do some research.
All right.
They're
Well,
former high elves, basically, and
okay.
they renamed themselves in honor of their people who were killed during the siege of Quel'Thalas.
Okay.
So I don't know. I
All
guess if
right.
you're not really into WoW, you're not really gonna
So essentially, blood elves are high elves. That it's like the blue and the gray during the Civil War.
know. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. They kind of separated themselves
Same,
from their
exact
ancestors.
same thing, except they're just like we want slaves, and the other side it was like f that.
No,
So
actually, in this
Elf
sense, it was
Lincoln.
more like I want to summon some big ass thing, and everybody else was like, that doesn't sound very good at all. And then they just kind of
Buggered off and
they
summoned
kind of
the thing.
ostracized him, and
Okay.
here we are.
All right. So, when elves started getting a bit more defined, they actually started becoming increasingly sinister in Old English stuff,
Mhm.
which, despite my misgivings of elves, they are generally, good. Like Lord of the Rings, they aren't immediately like we need to fight for the side of righteousness. They're
Mhm.
just like people. They need a reason and all that. But
Exactly.
total annihilation from Sauron was a fairly good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, elves aren't blanket good, but for the most part, they're on the side of good in most role playing games or fantasy type things. And I find it weird that they started becoming increasingly sinister, especially it did change during the Romanticist movement. They
Mhm.
started reviving old folklore and stuff like that, and I think that was when they're just like, no, elves, look at them, they're pretty, they can't be evil.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's but then again, vampires
Yeah.
typically seen as pretty and
Yeah.
also bad attitudes.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think any sort of elf race or type is inherently bad. I think they're always kind of presented as this anti-hero type.
Really?
You know, yeah. Well, they just kind of do what's convenient to them at the time, whether it's good or bad.
Hmm. So
They don't
you're
really.
saying they're selfish.
Yeah, why not?
Fair enough. Fair
They're
enough.
immortal.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
So.
They can live for thousands of years. Why wouldn't they be like, you know what, I feel like doing what I want to do for the next 300 years. Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't remember what it was. It was either a book. Well, I think it was a book,
Yeah.
but like a guy was immortal, so he spent 100 years. No, this was I think from the show Supernatural.
Yeah.
There's a guy that like was immortal, so he spent like 1,000 years doing only good, then 1,000 years doing only evil, and then he did 1,000 years of just self-serving mischief and shit.
Yeah.
Which I think was the character of Loki, who ended up being one of the archangels in I think the fifth season. I haven't watched that show in a while. I like that show a
I
lot.
haven't seen it. I hear a
It's
lot about it on Tumblr.
Oh yeah, see that's because there are two tall, hunky men going
And
around.
God forbid anybody just leave it alone.
Yeah, that fucking Tumblr. Like you can't have anyone of even remotely interesting features, remotely attractive features, and not have slash fiction made of
Look at
them.
what they did to Tom Hiddleston.
Tom
God damn it.
Hiddleston, remind me. Oh yeah, I heard at Comic Con there was a very large amount of female Lokis,
Of course.
which I would have been happy to see. I'm
Me
sick.
too.
I'm sick of the Princess Leia slave costume thing.
Yeah, me too.
Like I respect Star Wars
For what it
for
is.
what it is, for what
Yeah.
it was, what it meant to me at the time. It doesn't mean
Mhm.
it to me anymore. I still
No.
respect it again, but I a while ago I bought the trilogy in a box set, the original trilogy, not the god awful prequel trilogy. I almost didn't get that word out. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna watch all three movies. And I watched the first one. I was like, you know what, I've had enough.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
I'm
Chewbacca
alright.
didn't get a medal. Fuck this, and
Yeah.
just
I'm out.
yeah, it was yeah, fuck Princess Leia. Yeah, that's
Uh-oh.
what I wanted to say during the entire Elves episode. What the real
Let's
crux of
talk
it
about
is
Tumblr
fuck
and
Princess Leia.
fuck Princess Leia.
Yeah. One thing that was kind of cool, some old English root words. The one for hiccups was Elf Sagoda,
Mhm.
like Ape Sagoda, and for nightmares it was Elfadal,
Mhm.
meaning that they were both blamed on elves, which that's a really weird range. Hiccups and
Yeah.
nightmares. There's
Yeah.
probably other things, but like when I think of medieval times and old English times and stuff like that, and I think about stuff like hiccups, I think about okay, what would I think if I was 6 and I got the hiccups? Not necessarily that an elf was going on, but it baffled me. I had no
Mhm.
idea what was going on.
Mhm.
So why not blame it on elves?
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So to me, it's a logical step,
Of
and
course.
it's another notch in the ever increasing anti-elf.
Oh,
Yeah. There is an evil in WoW because have you ever played any other type of role playing games, MMO or otherwise?
I just recently started playing Terra for what it's worth.
What is Terra?
Terra is basically an MMO,
Mhm.
but all the races are equal. There isn't between all the races there isn't really a good or evil, but
Okay.
they're fighting a greater evil than their personal strife, which is good. I like that idea.
So Terra is a fantasy?
Yes.
Is it? The name makes me think, like, does it take place on Earth?
No,
Okay.
not conventionally. I don't
What's what would the title like? What would the title mean then? You
know.
know?
I don't know actually. I think it's their world.
Fair enough.
It's not necessarily Earth.
Yeah. But just it happens to have the name Terra kind of
Yeah.
thing. That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there are elves in that, and I'm guessing dwarves and stuff like that too, right?
Actually, I'm surprised that the races seem to be a lot different than WoW and all that, because they still have the cliche humanoid. They do have elves, actually. I just
Yeah.
remembered. They have
Okay.
high elves, and that's pretty much it
There,
as far as elves go.
I find, having read a bit of fantasy, played a number of fantasy games,
Mm-hmm.
watched fantasy movies. Not a lot of fantasy movies in that kind of setting, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But there's almost always two types of elves: high elves and wood elves.
Mm-hmm.
And like there can be dark elves and blood elves and this and that and the other, but almost always, if there's more than one type of elf, it's high elf and it's wood elf.
Mm-hmm.
Wood elves tend to be kind of like not savages, because
Hunter gatherers.
yes, hunter gatherers. Yes, they're kind of like Native Americans that live in trees.
Yeah.
And the high elves are just basically the aristocracy.
Mm-hmm.
In all, typically, it's focused more on the negative as well.
Yeah. They seem
Again, the
to inherit
haughtiness
all the
and
haughtiness.
yeah,
Yes.
and wood elves tend to be a bit well. They're also kind of haughty in their own way,
Mm-hmm.
but they have usually a bit better reasoning behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Like high elves are just like we can't invite these types of people into the city because they're too low class.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the right birth. They in the aristocracy.
Yeah.
Watch Downton Abbey and you'll understand elves. And high elves specifically. Wood elves are more just like we can't let these people in here because they'll probably kill something,
Yeah.
and we don't want the natural balance
Of
to
the earth.
of the earth and nature. Mighty bear can only kill the low rabbit. What?
That's
I
exactly
don't
what I
even
was
know what
thinking.
the hell that means, or why that voice had to be the one that's talking about it. But that was fucking
Because
awesome.
they're hippies, obviously.
Yeah, mighty bear.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, the last one I did, I think I did an Indian voice when I was talking about
Oh
druids.
no.
Yeah, I know, and
Oh no.
it
Too bad.
just me cackling. Yeah, wood elves I've always had a little less of a problem with,
Mm-hmm.
but I still find them irritating, mainly because I don't like hippies. And
You don't like anything, do
I'm
you?
see, look, I
You don't
again,
like hippies.
nope,
You don't like elves.
nope,
You don't like children.
nope. Well,
You
no, I don't like
don't
kids.
like old people. You don't even like people your own age.
No, I don't. I don't.
You don't like anybody.
I am an angry person, except it's hidden beneath all the laughter and the smiles, and the many jokes,
Oh,
the
jokes.
award-winning jokes.
Award-winning jokes.
Yeah, I have a Nobel Prize
Of
in joking.
course. Pretty sure that's
Granted to be my
Nobel Peace Prize
Professor
in
Higgs was
jokes.
his name.
Oh.
Yeah, I can't quite remember.
Oh.
He made like the Higgs boson or whatever it's called.
I'm not even getting into this.
Just the look of disappointment on your face.
Well, that's okay, I guess.
um,
We digress.
yeah. One thing to help kind of establish who Caitlin is. This gets a little bit away from elves, but we both are kind of horror movie buddies.
Mm-hmm.
We and one of the most treasured memories I have of seeing a horror movie with Caitlin was we got a. I used to write for an online magazine that was really a failure from the get go, but I was able to snag. I still get a press passes. Okay, well, pre-screen passes to some movies, and I got one to The Devil Inside, and I brought
The
Caitlin
biggest
along.
cock tease of movies.
God damn it! It's thing is, you remember watching it, and for the first half,
Yeah.
it seemed promising.
Yeah,
It was establishing story. The
was
characters were interesting.
it was, the cliche kind of possession movie,
Hmm.
and, it established an actual character base.
Yeah, it's a
somewhat.
the thing like you say, it was kind of just the standard possession movie, but it also went a little bit further into the whole Catholicism area
Mm-hmm.
by having like quote unquote actual priests
Mm-hmm.
in this, people that worked at the Vatican and all of this, because it takes place in Vatican City,
Mm-hmm.
and the possession case that they took care that the documentary crew was a witness to. There we go.
Yeah.
That first one with the Italian woman, that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they were doing the exorcism on the main character, again, that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But then the movie just stops. It just ends in a super predictable way, super sudden.
And nothing was resolved at all.
Nothing's resolved, and then it just says, for more information on this horrifying case, please visit our website.
What the fuck
That's,
is that shit?
even if you're making a movie with the conceit that it's a documentary, a mockumentary, or found footage film,
Exactly.
don't stop it halfway through and say, I guess you're just gonna have to look online to find out what happened.
That. Once I leave the theater, I give less than two shits
about
what's gonna happen.
And the thing is me and Caitlin were so disappointed, and when that text came up saying visit the website, I immediately just started laughing in this way that I very rarely do. Since then, I haven't been able to laugh like that because it has to be so natural. It was basically you told me not to laugh like a villain.
Yeah.
Because it was like a couple. It was like ha 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 ha. Just like, it was as if I'd taken over Bosnia or something.
Basically, yeah.
And I did check out the website.
Oh, you did.
And it resolves nothing. It tells you nothing that you hadn't already seen.
Awesome.
It's
such a disappointment.
Yeah, it's.
I don't even.
Yeah. Anyways. Yeah, you haven't played any like an actual pen and paper RPG, have you?
I have not.
No. I have some friends. Actually, the guy that I talked to last, this guy named Joe.
Mm-hmm.
He's part of a role playing group, and I've been invited to play. But it's always weird going into a new group, which I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that the thing with elves in those types of games. I almost always pick dwarf or human. Human is the most vanilla because they have kind of across the board normal-ish stats, like right in average.
Mm-hmm.
Dwarves are a bit, stronger and stuff like that. Elves are weaker, but they have higher charisma and higher intelligence and stuff, and they're better at magic and crap, which is kind of goes back to the whole thing about them being like magical beings.
Mm-hmm.
So shit, I wish I had more notes. The only note I have left is that Xmas elves are different, and that's a. If you think about Christmas elves, and they're always just called elves, they are never portrayed the same way, other than having maybe pointed ears, like in the old stop motion animation thing with Herbie, the elf that wants to be a dentist. They have,
oh, memories.
yeah.
Yeah.
Bumbles bounce,
Yep.
And
Did you know that?
yeah, it's Christmas elves are like, okay, to describe an elf, how would you do that? Like a standard fantasy elf.
Standard fantasy elf.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Tall.
Mm-hmm.
Probably long hair.
Mm-hmm. Probably blonde.
Probably blonde.
Not always.
Almost always blue-eyed.
Yeah.
Or golden-eyed, or something really fruity.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously pointed ears.
Yeah. Slender, skinny.
Slender.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. That about. Yeah. That about covers it.
Yeah.
Kind of like Aryan Nation.
Yeah.
Which is See, Germanic. Oh, those fucking Germans. Anyways, but when you think about a Christmas elf, not tall.
No.
Really quite short. They can and often are fat, roly-poly little things.
When I think of
giggling.
A Christmas elf,
Mm-hmm.
I think of, I don't know, Brian Froud's fairies, which is weird.
That's completely lost on me.
Brian Froud, he did the fairy designs and puppet designs for the Dark Crystal and stuff like that,
Oh
and
yeah.
just like the Labyrinth. He kind of,
Yeah.
helped design these fairies and stuff.
hmm
Just they were really skinny, and they had big heads and like itty bitty wings, and yeah, I don't
David
know.
Bowie actually in Labyrinth could be, because he had the hair. I assume he had pointed ears. He could be seen as what an elf would look like.
Yeah,
Yet he was the Goblin King,
yeah,
and yeah, that's a good movie. It's a
uh,
very good movie.
excellent.
Yeah, but
So many crotch shots.
so yeah, weirdly spherical crotch
Yeah,
shots.
yeah.
So unpleasant.
Always a head level
Yeah,
puppet, or a
yeah.
waist level.
Some puppet needs to be talking to David Bowie's crotch in every scene that he's in. So, just to
Mhm.
emphasize.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
hmm but again, like with Christmas elves, they're actually more like the goblins
Yeah.
from Labyrinth. Usually not as hideous or
Yeah.
as dumb, but they're basically factory workers. Yeah, they're factory workers. They make toy like wooden trains
Yeah.
and blocks, which are apparently still big,
Still big.
still huge on the Christmas market.
Yeah, of
As a
course.
they're just like, well, we could make an Xbox out of wood, but then the discs don't work because they're made out of wood.
This wouldn't be fun anymore.
Yeah. And, the thing about Christmas elves is that they still only make, like, if you ever see commercials and featuring them, it's usually kind of a Rube Goldberg-esque kind of machine.
Mhm.
Toys flying through the air, elves flying through the air, constructing the toys,
Yeah.
like stupid, crazy things going on, and but never making anything of what would be considered worthwhile toy. No good modern toys anymore.
I think they've
Bicycles.
I think they've really kind of um, preserved the idea of the folklore elf,
Yeah.
So a rocking horse is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Blocks are kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
It's I think it would be weird if they modernized it.
Yeah, and thinking about it, most kids at about what age do kids realize Santa isn't real? Spoiler, by the way, Santa's not real.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
sorry,
can't
Caitlin.
believe it.
Like around like fairly young,
Yeah,
like maybe 7 at the latest, 7
yeah,
or 9 at the
yeah,
latest. And by that point, they're not really interested in blocks and rocking horses.
yeah,
But since they know that it's not real, why would the elves be making PlayStation 3s? You
yeah,
know? The most complicated thing you ever see an elf build that I can think of is a bike.
yeah.
And that's
That's
really
about it.
yeah, like when you're 5 and you think I could have a bike, that's wow.
Amazing.
I'll ride around talking on my cell phone because I'm 5 and I need a cell phone.
Of course.
Children.
Story for another
Yeah.
time.
um. Yeah. It's weird that they're still called elves, but the whole like I can't imagine. The whole Discworld series.
Mhm.
That's Terry Pratchett, right?
Yeah.
He takes interesting views on most of the classical fairy tale type creatures,
Mhm.
like dwarves. You can't tell if they're male or women because they both look the same. They both grow beards.
Mhm.
Golems are basically automatons with
Mhm.
the minorest of personalities. Vampires can quit blood, but they have to take another sort of addiction. Like in one book I read, one of them's addicted to coffee.
Oh.
And for the Ankh-Morpork, which is the main city, Ankh-Morpork, I've read 2 of these books, and I
Yeah.
watched a movie, but
Nice.
it was a good movie. Ankh-Morpork is the main city, and awful name. They're the newspaper. One of their star photographers is a vampire,
Mhm.
but the thing is, whenever they put the cape over their
Yeah.
head, they hold up the thing with the flash powder, and whenever that goes off, he turns to dust. He
Oh
gets
my goodness.
better,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just the flash of bright light. He turns to dust, and like it seems to me very counterintuitive. That's a
Of
poor
course.
job, but he's apparently very good at it.
Of course.
And
Of course. You only got one shot, right?
exactly, I don't know what they say for elves, but knowing Terry Pratchett, there's probably some sort of reference to the whole Christmas elf thing, because he makes a lot of references to the modern world and modern ideas of stuff. Like they have in the movie I watched, it was about the postal service.
Mhm.
which had died because it had been replaced by clacks, which is essentially fax and email, except in a fantastical world
Mhm.
where they shine lights and have slats and stuff, and it goes
Mhm.
through kind of like a telegram.
Mhm.
Yeah, like so he has all these modern type of things in this old fantastical world, but I don't know anything about the elves. I
Mhm.
just so basically this was a very large anecdote praising Terry Pratchett's writing and giving no information to the topic at hand. Jesus.
So, newsflash:
Yeah.
Terry Pratchett, good writer.
Yeah, good writing.
I read, and the name escapes me.
Oh, good job.
Surprise, surprise.
The book I read, the first one was Monstrous Regiment,
Mm.
which was the reason I picked it up was because it had a wide range of monstrous characters. There were
Mhm.
Igors, which are called Igors.
Of course.
There were vampires. I think there was a Frankenstein monster, a werewolf, uh, golems,
Mhm.
and it, I liked the book.
Mhm.
The main character is a girl pretending to be a boy so that she can join the military and watch over her brother. As this book goes on, more and more of the characters turn out to be girls pretending to be guys
Yeah.
so that they can fight in this war that none of them really seem to have believe in.
Any.
And
Yeah.
by the end of the thing, every character in that regiment is actually a girl pretending to be a guy,
Mhm.
including the head sergeant, who is actually an old woman, but no one really noticed.
Wow.
Yeah, it's it's an interesting book, but again, I was just like, why is this happening? This, oh god, this entire world has no male or female sexual characteristics. It's all just kind of down the middle.
Mhm.
Everyone's androgynous.
Wow.
That that gets back to the elves though,
Mhm.
because they do suffer, and I do mean the word suffer from androgyny.
Suffer from
Yes, they
androgyny.
suffer from the terrible crippling inability to determine what sex they are.
I think they can tell just fine. I
Well,
think it's everybody else's, but I don't know. I don't
yeah.
know.
If elves existed,
Mhm. They would all be models.
they, yes, but do you also think there would be a bit more, I guess, openness towards homosexuality
I
due
don't
to
know.
the bizarre prettiness? It happens in vampire stuff.
True.
So it,
If okay, let's
mhm,
just say if they existed, if they're immortal,
mhm,
I think we
vampire.
basically gotta listen to them because they know their shit. I mean, they're
Yeah,
like 3,000 years old. We don't have any business fucking arguing with them, so we
yeah.
might as well just do what they think's normal.
And the Earth is only 2,000 years old.
You know what? This is a hypothetical. Just
You're not gonna mention that I just made complete bullshit up. Just
mm-hmm.
like, yeah, the 2,000-year-old Christian, well, not Christian, but Christian fundamentalist. There we go.
Well,
View
clearly
of the
I'm
Earth.
Christian.
You're deeply
Clearly,
Christian, yes.
deeply,
You
Jesus
have
is deep,
three
deep in my heart.
three crucifix necklaces, each of them gold,
Egypt gold.
of varying quality.
You know, one's to symbolize the Holy Spirit, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
the body and the blood. You
Hmm.
know, I'm just
I
I'm
thought
just
you were gonna
taking
be,
pieces.
yeah, I thought you were gonna be going for the whole like Catholic Trinity, and you're just like, no, just the Holy Spirit, and then the body and the blood of Jesus,
Yeah,
because
well,
fuck
varying
God.
quality. Hello. I don't know. Maybe he was sunburnt.
Ugh, what does that even mean?
I'm just. I don't know. Clearly, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah, clearly. Hobbit is coming out fairly soon.
Yes.
Well, Christmas or next year, because I think it's a 2013 date.
Um. No, it's this year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
because everyone was making jokes about how the world will end.
Because of The
The
Hobbit?
Hobbit. Yeah.
Weird. I haven't heard any of those jokes.
Oh,
Do you remember anything offhand?
it's
Something I should just
basically
look up on my
just
own.
they aren't witty or anything. They basically people are just like, wow, if that's the last movie I see, you know, when the world
Huzzah!
ends,
That's
better be good. You
um.
know,
I
classic.
actually heard that the whole Mayan prophecy thing, like someone looked at the whole thing and was like, "Oh, we were actually off by 3,000 years." Which, first off, if you believed it in the first place, you're dumb. And if you think, "Oh, 3,000 years, phew," but like you still believe it, you're dumb. Like
Yeah.
it's not going to end. There's no way it's going to end
If
in
if
2012.
The only thing that will end our reign would be ourselves,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
And we're doing a pretty good job of
We're
fucking
doing a
ourselves
very
over.
good job. Yeah, you know,
So,
you
I
know.
mean, I wouldn't really worry about prophecies and Nostradamus and fucking asteroids crashing into the Earth, because we'll probably be the end of ourselves before that happens.
Speaking of Nostradamus, you want to hear something completely moronic that people do regarding
Yes,
Nostradamus?
of course.
Okay, people look at what he wrote down, and they metaphorize it. They're like,
Mhm.
oh well, this is clearly Obama. This is clearly President Reagan. This is blah 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 blah
Clearly.
blah. And the lion will rise from the east, and blah. It's like fuck off.
Uh-huh.
What some people do is they take a line of his prophecy and then rearrange the words, saying like, oh, this is what he really meant. You know what happens when you rearrange the words of a sentence?
You change the meaning.
You change the sentence, which means it's saying something different now
Yeah.
because you changed it.
Yeah.
Nostradamus was not like, I'm going to write just complete bullshit sentences, and then someone is going to figure out my code, which
Wink.
has no common denominator. It's everything is random because
Yes.
I'm brilliant. Like,
Of course.
no, Nostradamus was a dude who's just like, I think this stuff might happen in the future.
Just FYI.
Yeah. It could happen, might not, probably won't.
Good.
Someone today should write a. But the thing is, with the internet, that kind of ruins it. If you make prophecies now, it's spread so quick and immediately debunked because they're clear that you're full of bullshit. If Nostradamus existed in the time of the internet, he would be.
People have already done that, though. Look at Sylvia Brown.
Yeah.
She's written plenty of books on
Harold
the
Camping.
afterlife.
Harold Camping, who said that the rapture was going to happen last year.
And then he changed his mind. And then he changed his mind.
He didn't
again.
change his mind. The day came, he was wrong, and he's just like, I need to go back to the numbers. And I need to read. Yeah.
Are you really that bad at math?
Yeah. You know what? You know who
Bullshit.
could bail us out of this? Elves.
Of course.
You know how? Because I don't. I'm hoping that you
They're
have an
like
idea.
3,000 years old. They probably know, history is doomed to repeat itself. So they're
Yeah,
like,
like,
hey, well,
Elf
we're
just
still alive.
Elf just shows up. It's like, yeah, I lived with the mines for a bit. I helped with the county. You know what? They were all stoned. They were high as hell.
But I mean, if they did exist and if they were 3,000 years old,
Mm-hmm.
don't question me.
I'm not questioning
3,000 years old.
Elves are
goddamn
generally
it.
characterized as
And-
being immortal.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If they're immortal,
They have no
then-
telomeres.
they. Pardon?
Hmm?
Whatever. I lost my train of thought.
So 3,000 years old.
And they know what is going to happen based on the past,
Mhm.
which is that 3,000 years is a long fucking time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just for them, the one elf. I'm sure there's other elves out
Yeah.
there.
I don't think they're all 3,000.
No, there might be older elves. I mean,
There might be older.
okay,
Space
whatever.
elves.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm getting a little out of hand here,
This is fine.
but they probably have a pretty good idea of what to expect. I mean, they're immortal, so
Yeah.
they don't want to die. I mean, just because they're immortal doesn't mean they're
Mm-hmm.
invincible.
Yeah.
They just can't be killed by time.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't want to die.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, of course.
Speaking again of the whole immortality of elves, though,
Mhm.
you've read the Lord of the Rings books, or at the very least you've seen the 3 movies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At the end, the elves all get onto boats and then sail off to a different Earth.
Yeah.
Doesn't that seem like a cop out?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, all right.
But why not?
We're agreed upon this. So that's good.
Why not? I mean, like I said, they don't want to die. They don't want to have to deal with.
But the evil's gone.
Is it?
You're right. Evil lives in the heart of every man.
Man, woman, and child.
Man, woman, and child. Every child is born with the hate in its heart.
Mm-hmm.
Said with such conviction.
Yes.
Well, I think we should about wrap this up. You actually did. You were nervous to begin with, and I actually think this turned out quite well. Is there anything you would like to promote? Anything you think people should be more aware of in the world of? Well, if you have something about elves, great. But if it's just some general geek thing.
I think we should all campaign for the rights of elves, because elves are people too, and they have feelings too, Corey. And I don't know, actually.
I did find the Society for the Support of Elves online, though.
That's an actual thing.
Yeah,
Oh
and
my.
I thought it would be something funny, but when I opened it up, it's actually a website that supports disabled children. And I immediately felt awful.
Oh,
Yeah,
that just felt really.
yeah. On that cheery note, this has been Geektionary.